Guys, it's Kadena, not Kadena. Get it right. This is a sponsored review of the Kadena blockchain hybrid platform. And welcome back to the channel, boys and girls. Hit the subscribe button and slam the bell icon so you're notified when media like this comes out. Just be aware that what follows is not meant to be any kind of an inducement to buy anything. I'm doing a high-level overview of the Kadena blockchain ecosystem, or blockchain hybrid ecosystem, and that really does involve a lot more than just holding a token. Now, if you've been following the channel for a while, you know that we actually have KDA, the token, in a paper trade tracking system, and we take a look at it on a fairly regular basis. So if you want to see price action, check out the regular live stream on Mondays, Wednesdays, and sometimes Saturdays too. But right now, let's do this overview of the Kadena blockchain. I'm on the website kadena.io, spelled just as you see right here. And this is their main page. From here, we can break out into all of the other areas that might be relevant to us as either users, individuals, developers who may want to build on it, or enterprise customers who are looking for a blockchain solution that will scale enough and give us enough permission and fine granular control over a private blockchain, and it redirects us to different sides of the website. I really like how cleanly this is laid out, and I think this helps communicate very clearly that the Kadena project and leadership, that they are serious about directing people to helpful information. For us, we can click on this area here and find out about wallets and ways to hold it, exchanges, places to buy it if we're interested in that. And that's really helpful. For developers, of course, we see SDKs, we see descriptions and documentation of how the packed programming or smart contract language works, which we'll talk about in just a second. That's the smart contract language used by Kadena. But here we would see that. From this view, we don't know about the packed language. We just see this call to action for developers. And then here on Enterprise, it also shows us how we can either partner with them or just quickly leverage the existing Kadena blockchain or chain web to be able to quickly deploy some kind of a solution for our existing business model. Again, I think this is pretty brilliant, pretty cleanly laid out. So let's take a look really briefly at a couple of pages that I think will help us get a better sense for what Kadena does and what it is. The About page is a great place to start. And a bit of the history, I think, helps inform that very well. The CEO of the Kadena project and the founder of the Kadena blockchain hybrid project, as well as, I think, the governing corporate entity, is Stuart Popejoy. And Stuart Popejoy started Kadena in 2016. Right after working someplace else. Well, let's cut to the chase and figure out where he worked. Over here on his LinkedIn, we can see Stuart right there. No banner. Come on, Stuart, get somebody to put a banner there. Seriously, I'm giving you grief, but seriously though, ask somebody to put a banner up here that'll look cool. Something that's Kadena themed, so people can immediately identify you as the leader of this project. But apparently it shows that there. But prior to that, he's the executive director in the new products division at JP Morgan. Ooh, boo, hiss. I hear you guys saying it from through the screen. I know we don't, in cryptocurrency, we tend to not like the big banks. But here's the thing. The big banks have been interested in cryptocurrencies and blockchain for some time. Well, at JP Morgan, who did they trust to evaluate all the smart contract platforms and all of the cryptocurrency platforms before, say, Ethereum existed? Yeah, Stuart, right? He was there from 2011 through 2016. So he was there before Ethereum even existed. And as it started to become an area of interest for JP Morgan, he was tasked with evaluating different blockchain projects and different smart contract layers within the blockchain broader ecosystem. And that kind of has made its way into the Kadena founding story. Here at JP Morgan, he assisted in building the first blockchain called Juno that they had internally. And now, of course, it's morphed into JPM coin, which is something else. The bottom line is, though, when he was doing work for hire for JP Morgan or employed there, he was already building blockchains that were intended to scale up to the needs of a company like JP Morgan. Most blockchains that exist today, well, they haven't been adopted. by companies like JP Morgan. JP Morgan hasn't made any announcements that they will definitely use Ethereum to try to scale natively on layer 1. If anything, maybe some layer 2s have been earmarked for adoption. Maybe there's been some interest in scaling up into private layer 2s or custom bespoke layer 2s that are built by some of these corporations, but that just didn't happen back then. And these were evaluated at a fundamental level way back then when I say it's like it's forever ago. At this point, time of recording, it's only been a little over 5 years that Stewart was there. But the point is, being able to map out and project the performance of Ethereum going at full tilt and ultimately, moving into proof of stake and sharding and all the things that they said it was going to do, well, it didn't take long for them to rule it out. And he was there for that. So Stewart and his co-worker at the time, Will Martino, who is now on the Kadena project and actively building and architecting and giving serious leadership within the Kadena project, they worked together to build that at JP Morgan. And now, after having vetted all these different blockchain projects, they figured out it's just not going to work. And they built their own. So here they are with some Fortune 500 companies as of 2018, now moving forward, getting onboarded into the Kadena ecosystem. Huh. Interesting. Seriously? Really? Fortune 500 companies? Are we just saying this? Is this just a PR fluff piece? Well, no. They're really doing this, and they really do have enterprise blockchain going right now. Not just at the consultant level where they're, glorified Solidity developers who are building something for these companies on Ethereum. No. These companies have onboarded into the vertical solution of Kadena, which is multiple different technologies. Let's take a look at their white paper and see exactly which technologies that is. Now, here on the white papers page, there are a lot of white papers because there are different sides to the Kadena ecosystem. There is the public blockchain, the private blockchain, and then the smart contract language. And there are white papers for several of them. We're going to take a brief look here in this video at the public summary paper, or the Kadena public summary paper. And it tells us a few things. It talks to us about the packed smart contract language with its verification system, built-in governance mechanisms for those smart contracts, native support for oracles, REST APIs, which is kind of a big deal to be able to hook into the traditional web and the technologies that power it. And then the database integrations, again, integrations into the web as it runs right now. And then Chainweb, which is their new multi-chain proof of work architecture. So Byzantine fault tolerant proof of work and scalable blockchain that uses some elements that we're somewhat familiar with as miners and as people who are interested in this technology, but extends it and makes it more useful, more scalable, and faster at scale. So this white paper goes through a few things. I'm going to just talk about a couple of highlights as I scroll through here. And the formal verification of the contract code, and specifically the packed smart contract language. I think to sum up the packed smart contract language without drawing any comparisons to other programming languages, it differs from what we've used in the past in that it's designed to protect the Kadena blockchain and Chainweb, as well as the broader blockchain ecosystem, from users like me. Frankly, who may be interested in we're kind of script kiddies, basically, right? We're like, hey, I want to modify this thing because I saw a tutorial somewhere and I might be able to make something with it, and that would be fun. But, a little bit of knowledge is a dangerous thing. We don't necessarily understand memory management and the proper usage of loops, and, when we've gone too far with certain things, we can cause damage, right? If that scripting language or that smart contract language is overly permissive, right? And it lets us run crazy and do things that jam up either the consensus or the ability of other users to get their transactions put into a block. And apparently that's what the packed smart contract language solves. First off, for knuckle draggers like me, I can't break anything. And then for the really, really sharp programmers who know what they're doing and who want to build something, but then put it into the hands of laypersons who can then make use of this smart contract language in terms of creating I don't know, trading algorithms, or being able to do arbitrage on different exchanges, or have some other internal needs at their company, either at the enterprise level or using a public blockchain. This smart contract language is apparently designed to protect users and the network from either malicious or inept users of the smart contract language. So yeah, I hope that kind of summarizes it really well, but that's my understanding of it anyway. The formal verification of contract code, they had all kinds of failures and exploits in the Ethereum ecosystem, and the problem comes with automating the execution of certain smart contracts. So they went through formal verification to increase the safety and assurance of the smart contracts. I think pretty much the same thing that I said in other words. They have built-in governance, which helps to create a sort of a rule set that prevents certain users within certain environments or in certain conditions from doing certain things. And I think we'd all agree that would be really nice to see. If, for example, when you have to do liquidity provision on an AMM like Uniswap or somewhere else, and you bring a liquidity provider token to another place, and you have to sign with your keys in MetaMask or something else to be able to commit liquidity with the liquidity provider token, and then all of a sudden that smart contract is abusive, right? You've actually signed to give them permission to drain the contents of your Ethereum wallet. This has happened, right? We've seen this in the Ethereum ecosystem. So being able to create checks and balances where you know for a fact that a developer team under certain conditions can't rug pull, kind of a cool thing, right? And then in other conditions, if people want to be a little more risky, we'll say, then you can enable certain behaviors. And if you really want to go and, feel the thrill of potentially getting rug pulled, then I think there may be some conditions where the packed smart contract language would enable that, right? Depending on who is creating the so-called sandbox at that time and for that particular use and service. But pretty cool. Oracles and services, by being able to tie into traditional databases and use RESTful APIs or REST APIs, you've got a lot of options, right? Being able to pull data from it and commit data to it. That's awesome. Being able to talk to the outside world the way it runs now. And then the chain web is kind of what we consider more traditionally the blockchain. And it is a fancy sharding system that allows for chain pruning, right? Or for chain pruning to be able to use Merkle trees in a more heady way, very much like running a pruned Bitcoin node and simple payment verification wallets, right, in Bitcoin. So you got really fast verification of transactions, and you got really fast inter-shard communication. And again, hopefully I'm not missing any details here, but as I understand it, it basically does some of the tricks that already existed in a UTXO-based system like Bitcoin, and then kind of extends them to, basically slams their foot on the accelerator, right? Pedal to the metal, and says, well, if we've got this speed accelerator, we've got this speed accelerator, and this speed accelerator, why don't we just go ahead and take the best of those, make sure they work correctly, and then with the way that we do our proof of work consensus, ensure that there is a much higher barrier to entry for somebody who wants to, a much higher bar for somebody who wants to act maliciously, 51% attack, and then rewrite those blocks. So I'm kind of simplifying there, but I think that the way that they've laid it out here, with the theoretical 1,250 chains, an attacker would have to be able to commit 51% of the hash rate to all 1,250 chains simultaneously in order to be able to successfully double spend on the chain web blockchain within the Kadena ecosystem. So I think I'm getting it right there. If you know better, tell me in the comments, right? I'm not going to go any deeper than that because I don't want to speak outside of my level of understanding there. So a lot of really great kind of speed hacks to speed up the finality of writing transactions to this chain web blockchain within the Kadena ecosystem, and making it roughly 10,000 transactions per second. And I realize that in today's blockchain landscape, we see things like, oh, well, look at what Solana can do. It can theoretically do like 400,000 transactions per second. Well, how'd that work out for Solana recently, right? It functioned as a DDoS attack that forced them to reset their validators, right? So it's very clear that in a proof of stake world, really high transactions per second don't necessarily guard against like certain attack vectors. And we're seeing that some of these proof of stake systems are not as anti-fragile as their architects maybe told us they would be. Proof of work is quite anti-fragile. So I love the Kadena blockchain and ecosystem still uses proof of work. I think it's just great, right? Very, very anti-fragile. You can have, for example, every single Bitcoin miner in China turn off overnight. Bitcoin didn't stop working, right? And the same will be true of Kadena as the hash rate increases and decreases, just ebbs and flows, right? According to market conditions and participation. And of course, network difficulty and all the rest that we talk about when it comes to hash rate and proof of work. So that's the white paper in a nutshell. You can, of course, read all of that as a deep dive for yourself by going to the white papers page on the Kadena.io website and see all of that. A word on the team as well. I mentioned before Stuart Popejoy, who we took a look at his LinkedIn page, and he's a guy that has gotten around in the blockchain space in terms of really understanding it. I think it's safe to say this guy understands it pretty well. He's measured the breadth and depth of what blockchain can do and what it can't do, and that's why he decided to make his own. And then the rest of the team here, you got plenty of engineers who, as you check out their credentials, these are real people, right? They're obviously real people with real world experience who are doing meaningful work here. They're not just faces on a page that were copied and pasted from some stock photo website, which it makes me genuinely sad that I even have to mention that in a review of a blockchain project, but here we are. So these are real people. That's the important thing to know. These are real people. These are real people who do real work, such as Monica here as an advisor, helping to open doors for them and get stuff done. Engineering team here, operations team, Emily, shout out to Emily, who was at a speaking event for a virtual summit that the Flux Network team put together, and I spoke at that one as well. This is what caught my attention from Kadena at that time was Emily's articulate manner of breaking down the problem domain that Kadena seeks to solve and being able to articulate very clearly the ways in which they seek to solve those problems. So it was really cool to see some of their engineering team out in the wild saying like, hey, we're going to champion and advocate for this different way of doing things. So yeah, that was kind of, for me, a touch point with Kadena that got me to change my mind a little bit, got me to look a little more closely. So when the opportunity came, when my time was paid for to do a deeper dive, I just felt like, you know what, that this is an easy yes for me. It's a very easy yes, because I've heard highly intelligent people talk about this in a highly intelligent way. So yeah, with the rest of the team, I think it's just more of the same. Really great people like Will Martino that worked with Stuart at JP Morgan and then ideated and created and architected the initial changes that were going to take place for an ecosystem like Kadena to exist and to be meaningful in the change space within blockchain. And then obviously you have to have business development if you're serious about getting enterprise blockchain going. So if you don't have somebody whose sole job is business development, then you don't really have a business. But more great engineers, and then of course an advisor here who may be familiar, we'll come back to in a second, Stuart Haber, or Dr. Stuart Haber. Operations, which again, you have more than a few people, you have to have an operations specialist. You have to know, you have to have somebody who's there to keep the trains running. I know that sounds diabolical, but it's true, right? Like in the office, right? Everybody hates Toby, but if you have a big enough office, you have to have a guy like Toby. Sorry, Anastasia, you're not Toby, but just saying. So yeah, great engineers as well, including within the advisory space, Dr. Stuart Haber. Who the heck is this guy? Right, you're asking, why are you making mention of this guy? And I know we're kind of doing like an MVP spotlight. That's not super cool, but whatever. Here we are. I'm going to do it anyway because you need to know. That's why you watch this video, right? So taking a look at Stuart Haber, this is his bio on World Crypto Index. So he did some work way back in 1991, literally, I think only like 4 years after completing his PhD work, but created some work in 1991 alongside Scott Stornetta, who was at the time his colleague and went on to become his business partner for some time. They'd done a lot of work together over the years. But in 1991, some very meaningful work in the cryptographic signature space that kind of functioned like a proto-blockchain at the time. We would call it a blockchain if we looked at it today, right? If it were launched as a product today, what they did back in 1991, we would say, oh yeah, it's a blockchain. Like for us, that'd be a simple way of explaining it. Back then, that wasn't the lingo, right? They said like, no, this is a way to kind of prevent forgeries and provide authenticity to data using these timestamps that we're gonna make. And kind of like jumping down a little bit here in the description. So let's see, there it is. So the Linked Timestamping Authority framework they created in the research papers, and in 1991 they debuted. So there's record of this happening in 1991, and then in 1994 they created a company called Surety that kind of turned it into a business model, right? It's like, oh, well, is this actually useful? Hey, if it's really useful, will a business pay for it? Like, will companies pay for this? I mean, these are practical questions. Definitely at the time when the idea of being anonymous and, using a PGP enabled email, well, newsflash, wasn't even an option because PGP wasn't even invented until 1993. These are pioneers, is what I'm saying. These are people who were right there at the front lines, trying to create something that was meaningful and leveraged an extreme depth of knowledge in mathematics and cryptography. So it bodes super well for a project like Kadena to have a mind like Dr. Stuart Haber on their advisory board. That's why I'm going out of the way to mention this, guys. So I don't want to fanboy out too much here, but the point is, he's kind of a big deal when you do think about it long enough. But don't take my word for it. Take Satoshi's word for it. The third, fourth, and fifth entries in the bibliography at the end of the Bitcoin white paper are references to his work directly in cryptographic timestamp protocols. I mean, really, what other endorsement do you need in this space other than being quoted by Satoshi in the white paper? It's a really kind of a big deal. If you want to see something really cool, he's got a great TEDx talk called Blockchain Decentralization is Central. And no, it's not a polemic about how decentralization is actually centralized. It's something else. It's a fun play on words. You should watch it at some point. It's just really great. So I'm being pleasantly surprised by everything I find from this team that I can read up on. So that's the team. And what does this all amount to, guys? In my mind, kind of in summary, this amounts to a blockchain that solves three problems, or aims to solve three problems, as they put it, right? They aim to solve the problem of scale, or I guess speed at scale, right? Ethereum had no problems when there were 100 users, right? And then getting up to millions of users, it's starting to have problems, with especially speed and finality of transactions. How many times have you tried to submit a transaction in MetaMask only to see that the gas fee marketplace is going crazy because there are people trying to submit their trades faster and are bidding up the price of gas fees? It's kind of crazy, right? Now, on this channel, we talk a lot about GPU mining, so we benefit from that, right? Where it's like we're part of that gas fee marketplace. We're the direct beneficiaries of high gas fees. But from the user perspective, we've also been talking about how painful that is in direct proportion, right? Like, cool, gas fees are up. We're earning more Ethereum as miners. And then on the other hand, we're like, oh, gas fees are up. I can't move my mining rewards anywhere because it costs so dang much. And so clearly that's a problem that the Kadena blockchain seeks to solve, that particular scalability issue. And I think the second problem that it seeks to solve is the conditional privacy or conditional permissions of a blockchain and a smart contract language. I think something that the founding team, the verbiage that the founding team uses, the way they would prefer to talk about it, is that it's a principled language, right? Pact is a principled smart contract language. And because it doesn't let people break stuff and it doesn't let people do things that are overly abusive, right? It's not exactly a walled garden either. It is flexible and extensible. It does things that are useful in the real world, but it doesn't break its own blockchain by letting laypersons like me or you do weird stuff with smart contracts. So yeah, I think between those three things, right? So scale and speed, having the right permissions to the right people, and then having an unborkable smart contract language, right? Like not letting bulls like me go into the China shop of their blockchain and mess stuff up. I think that's what they aim to solve here. If you liked this review, this has just been a kind of a bit of a stream of consciousness. I know. Hopefully it's been helpful, though. If you like this review, do please give it a thumbs up. Do please leave me a comment letting me know what I left out, what more you'd like to know, how I can improve reviews like this in the future. And I don't have like a very solid, like just one format for reviewing certain projects. I feel like especially when it comes to vertically integrated projects like Kadena, where it's a brand new chain web, right, or a blockchain or a sharding system, and then it's also a new smart contract language, and it involves some other elements as well. It merits a different approach. So let me know what I can do to improve that. Guys, do you think that Kadena is a good project? Do you have experience with it? What was your exposure point to it? Is this the first time you've heard of it? If so, do you want to take a look at the real-time price movement with me on the channel? Because we review that during the live streams. I'm not going to touch upon that here. So let me know the answer to those questions and more down in the comment section. I know you always will, guys. The comments are out of control, and I am here for it. I absolutely love it. Thank you for hitting that thumbs up. Thank you for being subscribed and clicking the bell icon. Guys, you are the reason I make this media. I love your face. Remember to stay private and mind your biz. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. If you want to be notified of videos like this in the future, first off, click subscribe, press the bell icon. Additionally, you can sign up for the Mind Your Biz email newsletter. That'll give you exclusive access to certain freebies, notifications for deals within the cryptocurrency mining space, as well as some of our flash sales for merchandise, which you can buy with cryptocurrency. That's right. It's the only cryptocurrency merch that you can buy with cryptocurrency. We practice what we preach. As always, thank you so much for watching. You're the reason I make this media. I love your face, and I will see you in the next one.